Although Blake Shelton may have moved on from The Voice hasn't done the same. Working with all three of the current coaches on The Voice. Battle of Champions, the country music singer served as a coach for the first 23 seasons of the show. One aspect of his legacy that they will never forget is his little-known practice of lying to score artists. Liv Sierra, 16, sang "We Can't Be Friends, Wait for Your Love," a song by former coach Ariana Grande. During the first episode of The Voice Season 29, Kelly Clarkson and Adam Levine gave her chair turns, because the young artist had previously tried out for Season 28 of the program with Sabrina Carpenter's Espresso, and had not received any chair turns. The experience was particularly powerful. However, she did learn from Coach Snoop Dogg that rejection is redirection. Levin said, "Me too," as soon as the teen mentioned that they were from St. Louis, which delighted Sierra. However, Levin is renowned for coming from Los Angeles. After Levin acknowledged he wasn't from St. Louis, Clarkson questioned, "Do you want a liar for a coach?" Then, Coach John Legend said, "He's sitting in Blake's former chair. It rubs off." In the end, Sierra chose Clarkson, who had helped then-teenage Bran Cartelli, another comeback kid who re-auditioned for the show after being rejected the first time, to win The Voice in Season 14. Because of how well-known Shelton was on The Voice, the show had him take a lie detector test during his last season in the red chair, with hilarious results. Did Gwen Stefani, his current wife and fellow coach, marry him out of sympathy? Probably, Shelton said, and the gadget confirmed that his response was accurate. And Shelton's voice is still well known. Specifically, Legend recalls Shelton's practice of lying to obtain his favorite artist. "What I'm learning is he's a lot like Blake Shelton," Legend said in reference to Coach Michael Bublé, who during Season 27 offered to have an artist's name tattooed on his arm following a blind audition. Blake is his pal. Like him, he lies. During an interview with NBC Insider in 2023, Clarkson also made light of Shelton's dishonest image. "Laughing a lot is the best thing about working with Blake Shelton on The Voice. Among the funniest persons I've ever met is him." Before laughing, Clarkson said, "The worst thing about working with Blake Shelton on The Voice is he is a liar. He's hysterical." Blake Shelton was not intended to be the focus of Season 29 of The Voice. That's what everyone believed anyway. Blake had already established himself as one of the most well-known coaches in the history of the program by that point. He had triumphs. He had memorable phrases. Even his most brutal competitive actions felt pleasant because of his easygoing Oklahoma charm. Blake had established a brand inside that red spinning chair, whether he was making jokes about the dominance of country music or making fun of other coaches' dubious dress choices. However, Season 29 had different ideas. Because Blake Shelton wasn't the one making fun of him for the first time in a long time, it was he who was being criticized. The configuration. A cozy Legend Blake felt at home when he entered Season 29. When he leaned back, the red chair groaned in the same manner. His boots were struck at the same angle by the stage lights. The instructor's conversation came naturally. This was not the first time he had come here. A lot of times. He appeared more at ease than ever, if anything. He made a joke about being the panel's elder statesman. Because he didn't understand how the button timing worked, he made fun of the new coach. He nonchalantly reminded everyone that he still had a lot of trophies. During one of the first blind auditions, he stated, "Experience matters. You can't pretend. It rubs off." It sounded innocent at the moment. Blake being Blake. Nobody knew that he would be followed by those three phrases for the remainder of the season. The initial sign of trouble, innocently, it began during a blind audition. A teenage performer onto the stage and gave a heartfelt country pop performance that combined gritty elements with contemporary style. Blake's ears instantly pricked up. He nodded and leaned forward. He didn't think twice. He pressed his button firmly. Another coach also turned. And yet another. It was a three-chair struggle all of a sudden. Calculating, the fourth coach waited. Blake went first when the show was over. He remarked, "You got something special. And that experience when you're on my team. It comes off. This is something I've been doing for a while. I know how to prevail." The audience applauded. However, one of the other coaches interrupted the artist before they could reply. They grinned and continued. I love how you keep saying it rubs off, Blake. What is it exactly? The audience gave a little laugh. Blake laughed. You understand. Success. Knowledge. That champion mentality. The coach's head cocked. Or perhaps it's simply your accent. The laughter in the room erupted. Blake's eyebrow went up. Hey now. The light-hearted jab appeared to land and then go away. In the end, the artist selected a different group. Blake dismissed it. However, something had changed. The other coaches had discovered a gap. The everything-changing montage producers showed a montage a week later. Blake used the words, "it rubs off," each time. It took place during coaching sessions. It rubs off when you spend enough time with me. In the midst of combat. You're becoming more astute. You see? It rubs off. Throughout knockouts. That presence on stage. It rubs off. Commentary was not necessary on the part of the editors. The clips were simply arranged back to back. The crowd let up a yell. The statement had become a running joke by the end of the montage. The host turned back to him on stage. Blake blinked and remarked, Blake, do you realize you've said that 12 times this season? No, I haven't. Every incident was supercut on the screen. He shook his head and laughed. Well, it seems to do. However, the teasing didn't end there. Another coach bent down. Does that imply that we are all now a small nation if it rubs off? The crowd roared. Blake gave his cap a little tilt. It wouldn't be the worst. Still grinning, but a little cornered now. The performer who spotted him, the actual event took place during the live performances. With consistent performances, one of Blake's performers had survived the battles and knockouts. They were gifted, self-assured, and surprisingly talkative. In a rehearsal video, Blake provided comments. He remarked, "You've come a long way since the blinds. That assurance, that awareness of the stage. It seems to rub off on me." The artist hesitated. "I love you, coach," they responded cautiously. "However, I believe I put in a lot of effort to achieve it." There was silence in the room. Blake blinked. The artist softened it with a smile. "You did help after all. However, I also worked long hours." There was no animosity. Just be honest. The audience responded loudly when the clip was shown back on stage. In a way that said, "There it is," rather than in a mocking manner. Blake held up both hands. "All right," he said. "You make a valid point." Another coach rushed in. "Therefore, it might not rub off. Perhaps they deserve it." There was immediate applause. Blake pretended to appear injured as he leaned back in his chair. "You're all banding together against me." However, something about the occasion stayed with me. It was no longer merely a joke. It served as a gentle reminder that mentoring is a team effort rather than a magic trick. Working is how artists develop. Coach's manual. It's not a rub-off. The word began to sound strange. It becomes a meme on social media. Fans had carried the joke too far by the following morning. Social media was inundated with videos of Blake saying, "It rubs off." Memes created by fans. "Talent rubs off," said Blake, waving a vial of glitter. Standing by a trophy, Blake says, "Wins rub off." Blake says, "Country rubs off," next to another coach. Even previous competitors commented, jokingly quoting him. The program capitalized on it. The host once stepped onto the stage with a t-shirt that said, "It rubs off. Team Blake." Blake chuckled. "You guys aren't really letting this go, are you?" "Nope," another coach replied. "It is now ingrained in the culture." According to someone, it rubbed off. The crowd went crazy. The moment of change, something completely different emerged from what might have been a defensive moment. Blake changed his tone instead of doubling down. He spoke directly to the crowd in a subsequent live show. "All right," he said. "Allow me to explain. I don't mean to give these artists magic dust when I say, it rubs off. The work is done by them. I only try to direct it." The audience cheered. He went on. "And if anything's rubbing off, it's their energy on me. I also pick up knowledge from them." Everything changed with that line. The other coaches gave a nod. The taunting became softer. Blake was portrayed as the self-aware tutor instead of the overconfident veteran. However, he wasn't done with season 29 yet. The unexpected playoffs. One of Blake's best performers throughout the playoffs picked a tune that was entirely unrelated to the country genre. It was audacious, dangerous, unexpected. Blake seems uncertain throughout rehearsal. He said, "You know, this isn't exactly my lane." The artist smiled. "Perhaps it will rub off." The laughing erupted in the room. Blake gestured toward them. "Oh, you find yourself amusing." However, the performance was electrifying. Before the last note ended, the audience stood up. The artist proceeded with ease after the results of the vote were announced.